Pause right here. It's white to move, and Nezhmetdinov is about to do something that makes no normal chess sense. He's about to give up his queen, not for checkmate, not for forced perpetual, but for a long term domination. So do not just look for checks, ask the real question. Why would a player voluntarily trade a queen for two minor pieces in the middle game and still believe the attack is getting stronger? Keep this position in mind. In this game, the queen sacrifice is not the end of combination. It's the beginning of the squeeze. Let's go back to move 1 and see how Nezhmetdinov builds one of the most famous queen sacrifice ever played. Hello everyone, welcome back to Queen Sacrifice Legends episode 8. I'm Aniket, an Arena International Master. In this series, we break down real games where the queen sacrifice is not a random brilliance, it comes from the demand of the position. Today's game is Rashid Nezhmetdinov versus Oleg Chernikov, played in Rostov in 1962 at the Chigorian Team Cup. This game is often called Nezhmetdinov's Immortal, and once you see that queen sacrifice, you understand why. Nezhmetdinov never became world champion, and he never even became a grandmaster, but attacking players absolutely love him. He was one of the most imaginative players of his era, a five-time Russian champion and one of the purest creative forces in chess. Chernikov, on the other hand, was a very strong Soviet grandmaster. So this was not a casual attacking win against a weak resistance. What makes this game so important is that queen sacrifice on move 12 is not a flashy mating trick. It's a positional queen sacrifice where it gives up the queen for two minor pieces, but in return gets dark square control, better coordination, and an exposed king. And black's rook stuck doing nothing. This is why this game still gets studied today. Alright, let's restart from move 1. The game begins with e4, black played c5, Sicilian defense on the board. White continued the game with knight f3, black played knight c6, and here white played d4, playing open Sicilian. Here cd4 and knight takes d4, and here black played g6, which is an accelerated dragon. White continued the game with the most common way, which is knight c3, which is also known as modern variation. Black played bishop g7, and here white continue with bishop e3. And after knight f6, bishop c4, black simply castle, and here white continue with bishop b3. So here we got this position where there can be so many moves possible and has been played already. d6 is the most common move played here, and even black can play a5, rook e8, even queen a5. All these moves are just completely fine and has been played so many times. But here black decided knight g4, fifth most popular variation. Black immediately asked white a direct question. He simply attacks the bishop. Nezhmetdinov responded very actively and played queen takes g4. Black continued the game with knight takes d4, and obviously there is no good reason to give up a bishop for a knight here. So that is why white continued the game with queen h4. The idea is bishop h6. He wants to simply play bishop h6, play dark color bishops, and play the game. Here black played queen a5, moving the queen out, and black is coming with a threat. The point is, white cannot play bishop h6, which was our old idea. The reason is, there's a knight takes c2. It's a knight sacrifice, and obviously, when bishop takes c2 happen, there's a bishop takes c3 check, and after b takes c3, queen takes on c3 with a check, and now king goes to e2, queen takes c2. And after king f1, we'll get this position where black is completely winning. So that is why white needs to be a bit careful and just don't play bishop h6 right away. And that is what Nezhmetdinov see that, and he continue with the best possible way, which is castling. He simply saved his king and be ready to sacrifice his queen. And here black played bishop f6. First big psychological movement arrives. Black's move bishop f6 looks very logical. It hits the queen, challenges white's kingside pressure, and also hints at a repetition after queen h6. According to later commentary, Chernikov expected white to settle for a repetition here, but Nezhmetdinov had something much bigger in mind. So pause the video here and find the move what Nezhmetdinov played in this position as white. In this position, I have some games in the database. And what are the top 3 moves in this position is queen h6, queen g4, and queen takes f6. There are 3 possible options, and all these options are just fine. And in this position, Nezhmetdinov on move 12 sacrifices his queen for just 2 minor pieces. and he played queen takes f6. And now, point is, if e takes f6 happen, there is a bishop takes d4, which will put the pressure on f6 right away, and black will not get a chance to react to that move right away. And black will be having a hard time defending this position. So that's why after queen takes f6, black saw one thing, that he's gonna lose the knight anyways, so he decided to waste a move and played knight e2 check. It's a check, and obviously knight can capture it back. Then he played e takes f6. And the point is, now the bishop is not on d4, and knight is also on e2. So with one intermediate move, he has deflected two pieces to not on the better squares available. So let's count material. White has given up a queen and in return gets two minor pieces. On paper, it is not enough. So why is this brilliant? Because chess is not just arithmetic. Black king is weakened, the f pawns are damaged, the dark squares are collapsing, white's bishop and knights are going to dominate the board. Black's rook are going to struggle to join the game. And most importantly, white's attack continues without needing the queen at all. This is not a sacrifice for immediate tactics. This is a sacrifice for structure, squares, activity, and long-term attack. This is why this move becomes legendary. Modern commentary also notes that for a long time, Indians were skeptical, but stronger modern Indians recognize the sacrifice as fully sound. After e takes f6, white keeps playing with a pure energy, and white played knight to c3, and black played rook e8, simply keeping an eye on e4. And white didn't play a defensive idea like bishop d4 to protect it and then move the knight. He said no. He played knight to d5 right away, and it looks like the pawn on e4 is hanging by the rook. But no, because if black try to capture on e4, then black will simply lose a game after knight f6, simply winning the rook with a fork. So that is why this pawn is not hanging. So after knight d5 is a threat on f6, which will again come with a fork, and white will clearly win after this. So that is why black continued the game with rook e6, simply protecting on f6, and here black played bishop to d4, simply putting more and more pressure on f6, which is a weak square. Black played king to g7, simply keeping an eye on f6. White played rook a1, just moving the pieces into the game. Black played d6. His idea is planning to move the bishop onto the game and hope for best. And white is playing so actively that he played rook d3. His idea is rook f3 and then f6. Simple. And he's gonna eventually won the pawn on f6, and he will try to do some damage to the king. Black continued the game with bishop d7. He's developing his a rook as well. And after rook f3, white continues the same plan, rook f3. This is an excellent technique. Look at white's pieces. The knight on d5 is a monster. Bishop on d5 control key diagonals. The rook lift to f3 is aggressive and flexible. Black king has no real comfort. Black's extra queen still cannot express itself cleanly. Then black tries bishop b5, attacking on the rook. He played bishop c3, attacking on the queen. And after queen d8, the rook was still in danger, and he did not save the rook. He played knight to f6, grabbing the pawn, and white removes the key defender and deepens the attack. And here is only one move which can help black continue the game without any problems. And the move is rook to c8. But unfortunately, this is not what black played in this position. Idea of rook c8 was after bishop takes e6. Idea of rook c8 was after bishop takes e6, getting some of the material back, black has to sacrifice his rook on c3. After b takes c3, he's gonna play f takes e6, and now white can simply play rook d1, and we will get this position which is close to equal. There's nothing much happening, and game can continue on. And you might be thinking, why rook c8? Why not simply grab the rook and got some more material? Point is, bishop takes f1 is a blunder right away because of knight g4 check. It's a check from bishop, and now the point is, after king g8, he'll simply take on e6, and you can't even take the bishop because if f takes e6, that will lead to simple checkmate on knight h6. White's pieces are so active that king can checkmate it right away as well. So black needs to be very careful about it. So that is why after knight take f6, there was only one move, which is rook c8, and after rook c8, then black can survive the attack. But unfortunately, black continued the game with bishop e2. He's attacking both the rooks at the same time, but unfortunately, that's a blunder. This is one of the best lessons in attacking chess. When your pieces dominate and the enemy king is still unsafe, do not drift. Increase pressure while the position still favors activity. Pause your video here. White to move again. You could save the rook. You can play something else calm, maybe regroup. But Nezhmetdinov finds the right attacking continuation. He played knight takes at 7. He has sacrificed his queen, the both rooks are hanging, and he is giving his knight as well. This is a very strong move. It's just not a pawn grab. It drags the black king and keeps the attack rolling. Point is, this knight cannot be captured because if black tries to capture the knight, he'll simply lose the game instantly. White can simply attack on the king with rook takes f7 check, and after king to h6, he'll simply win the rook on e6, and he'll get this position where this bishop pair with the help of rook is crushing black's king, and there's no good way to continue the game after that. So that is why this knight cannot be captured. And black played king g8, just keep going, and white continue the game with rook h3. If you're thinking, why not let's grab the rook? Again the same idea. If you try to grab the rook, white is not winning anymore because after bishop takes f3, there's a knight f6 and king will go to f8. We'll get this position which is close to very equal because white has lost his key attacker which was a rook on f3, and now nothing major is happening and it is either draw or black can do some damage. That is why bishop takes e6 is not possible and white continue the game with rook h3, putting some pressure on h8 with the knight moving somewhere else. White's rook swings over and suddenly the h file, the dark squares and the king position all become critical. Black tries to defend with rook e5. He can clearly see that pieces are becoming super active on this diagonal, so he decided to give a rook for a bishop, and obviously white cannot accept this rook because if white tries to accept the rook, white is gonna lose the game. After d takes e5, the rook is in danger and now he has to save the rook. So let's say he moved the rook to e1, and after queen d2 he can simply resign the game. So that is why bishop cannot take the rook on e5. And here Nezhmetdinov played f4. He said, I'm not interested in your rook. What I'm interested is your king. There's only one move which keeps black into the game, and that is rook to h5. The point is, after rook to h5, he'll play knight f6, and again, you don't want to give up a queen because there's no good reason. So after king to f8, yes, you will lose a rook on h5, and after g takes h5, the rook is hanging, so white might play rook f2, and after queen b6, just pinning the rook, there's a rook g3, and we will get this position where white's piece is very active. The game is still close to draw. Or white is having slight advantage, but this was the best variation possible after rook h5. But unfortunately, black continued the game with bishop takes f1, but that is not the clean way to continue the game. And here, white played king takes f1. If white likes, white can continue the game with knight g5. Idea is he's putting pressure on f7 and the rook cannot move because checkmate is coming on h8. So it was possible, but white continued the game with king takes f1. White has given up a rook back for a bishop, and now white is having 4 pieces left on the board, and each and every piece is doing something on the board. This game is one long proof that active pieces can outweigh raw queen power. Black continue the game with rook c8. The idea is still the same. He wants to give up a rook for a bishop and maybe he can hold. White said nope and he played bishop to d4. He doesn't want to give up a bishop for this rook. And again, this is the last chance for black. He should play h5 and give up a rook on h5 and hope for best. But unfortunately, he played b5. White now has everything placed perfectly and he simply moved the knight back to g5 and he's attacking on f7. Black tried to defend it with rook c7. So this is the last pause moment of the game. Pause the video for the last time and find the best move for white to continue the game. White played bishop takes f7 and it looks like this was protected. Yeah, it is still protected. Point is, after rook takes f7, Nezhmetdinov has seen something and the move was rook to h8. He has sacrificed so many pieces and still he wants to sacrifice more. And he played this move. After king takes, he played knight takes f7 check. King has to move. He played king h7 and he even win the queen back on d8. So white wins the queen back. So after all the earlier position domination, the tactics finally cash out. The black queen disappears, white's pieces remain swarming, and the material picture now fully favors white. So this is why the original queen sacrifice worked. It was never about hoping the attack would be enough. It was about understanding that black's queen would never become a real queen in this position. It had no stable role while white's pieces keep gaining time with red. This is elite attacking judgment. So the bishop was in danger. White played knight c6 just defending it, and after rook takes on f4, he moved king e2, and in this position black simply resigned the game. The idea is his pawn is hanging on a7 and after he will play a6, the black's pawns are super weak and there are 2 pieces on the board from white side, which is completely winning for white. At that point, the position is strategically lost. White's pieces are active, black's attack is gone, and the earlier queen advantage has completely evaporated. That is why, after king e2, black simply resigned the game. This is the key lesson of the game. Why does queen takes f6 work? Not because of forced mate, not because white instantly wins material back. It works because of four things. First, dark square control. Once black recaptures with e takes f6, black, the king, and the structure become vulnerable. Second, piece quality. White's bishops, knights, and rooks are far more coordinated than black's queens and rooks. Third, rook inactivity. Black's heavy pieces never become harmonious. They defend, shuffle, and react, but they do not take over. Fourth, continuous initiative. Nezhmetdinov never gives black time to breathe. Every move asks a question. This is why this game is not just beautiful, it is deeply instructive. So that's Nezhmetdinov's Immortal, one of the most famous queen sacrifices ever played. The main takeaway is simple. Queen sacrifice doesn't need to force mate immediately. Sometimes the real compensation is better squares, better structure, better piece activity, and an attack that never stops. Nezhmetdinov didn't sacrifice his queen because he ran out of the options. He sacrificed it because he understood the position more deeply than his opponent. If you enjoyed this episode, subscribe for the next one in Queen Sacrifice Legends and comment below when you first saw Queen takes f6, did it look insane? Could you already feel that Black's queen would never be able to save this position? I will see you in the next one.